This is Red Moon Role-Playing.
Curseborne is a new urban horror role-playing game. It deals with everything urban legend, creepypasta, the strange folklore about the family that lives down the road, the murder house that's just off the block, the entity that lives in the alley on the other side of town, the creaking floorboard 2 floors above you when you're only in a 2-story house and you're already on the top floor. The unusual, weird, terrifying nature of stories that are common to media such as Mike Flanagan, Stephen King, The X-Files, Fringe. Anything in which you are likely to end up in a place that is deeply unsettling is likely to appear in Curseborne. And in this game, you play as the accursed, people and creatures that have gained or lost, through some deal or other or an inheritance, a damnation. There are 5 different types of accursed, 5 lineages in the core book. We have our hungry, we have our primals, we have our outcasts, our dead, and our sorcerers. In this particular game, as the listeners will find out, we are represented by a hungry, a dead, and a primal. And in other actual plays, you will be able to encounter more of them. Each one has their own flavour of damnation. Each one is tormented in their own way, and we will uncover exactly why and how in the game. In terms of the question, how is Curseborne? Well, Curseborne is a D10 dice pool system. 8s, 9s, and 10s are what you are aiming for. 8s and 9s are 1 hit each, 10s are 2 hits. Most of the time, you're going to be pairing a skill with an attribute. So let's say you've got a rank of 2 in one skill and a rank of 4 in an attribute. You add them together for your 6 dice. You're looking for 8s, 9s, and 10s, and for every 8, 9, or 10, you are trying to beat the difficulty of the challenge ahead of you. If you get more hits than you actually need to beat the difficulty, you can purchase tricks to make your success more spectacular. That tends to be how it goes. Unfortunately, sometimes your actions will be challenges that will have complications. The complications don't apply as a strict difficulty. They are things that might snag your clothing, might injure you as you try to escape, might get inside your head or befuddle you or otherwise leave you with some status effects if you don't buy them off with your extra hits. Likewise, you might have enhancements. Wielding the right kind of equipment, having the right kind of training, or having some kind of advantage in a situation will give you an enhancement rated from... Typically, going from 1 to 3, they can go up to 5, that you apply after you score hits. So, for example, the example I like to give with enhancements now is, let's say you are shooting at someone with a sniper rifle. If you're on a rooftop and you're shooting at someone with a rifle, well, right now it's just ranged combat plus dexterity to see if you hit. But if you have a scope on that sniper rifle, now you have an enhancement to hit. So that's +1 that you will get if you hit. If you have a laser sight as well, that's +2 enhancement. You're even more likely to hit. But all of that is irrelevant if you don't hit. So you have to hit first, and then you apply the results of your enhancement. That's basically how it works. Now, there are various other system bits and pieces, the ability to cast spells, the fact that our characters are carrying torments and inheritances. Torments tend to be negative, inheritances tend to be positive, natural kinds of abilities or supernatural. And we also have the damnations. Now, your damnations are going to particularly come into play whenever your characters run out of curse dice. At the start of our game, every single player will have 1 curse die. A curse die is something that they add as part of their pool. So if we go back to our dice pool of 6 that we used earlier, one of those dice will be a curse die. If you happen to succeed and your curse die is a success, is a hit, well, that's a wicked success. That's the best kind of success you could really hope for. If you fail, and your curse die was a failure, well, that's a cruel failure, and that's about the worst kind of failure you could hope for. When you run out of curse dice, because you'll be spending them, bleeding them as the game goes on to activate your spells, well, that's when your damnation triggers, and that can be a very worrisome effect that I'm sure we will encounter at some point during the course of our campaign. Now, I don't want to go any further into rules right now because other things will come up during the course of play, but that is the very basics of Curseborne's system, the Storypath Ultra system, and finally, why is Curseborne? Well, Onyx Path Publishing have got a very long history now of publishing some fantastic horror role-playing games. We've worked on The World of Darkness, we worked on Chronicles of Darkness, we worked on Dystopia Rising Evolution. These are all horror games of different flavour, different slant. Curseborne is our newest one. I think it's very much anticipated. We've been promoting it quite heavily over the last year, and come October, probably when this episode goes out, we will have a Kickstarter campaign running to fund the Curseborne role-playing game. So, that is the why. We want Curseborne to do well. It was our next foray into horror, and I think it is a superb game.
Well, in that case, I see no reason that I will not now leave you in the hands of Matthew Dawkins as we enjoy, I'm sure, a lovely, pleasant tale where nothing terrible will happen in the world of Curseborne.
Curseborne, Suffer My Sins. New campaign by Onyx Path Publishing for the Curseborne RPG. The lights flicker on in the morgue. There's a buzzing sound. You're very familiar with it, Monty. Some of these light bulbs really need changing, and it's as if the electricity actually struggles to access the filament. What's more, you're used to the harsh glare. I mean, it has to be brightly illuminated here. There's all kinds of things you can miss on a cadaver if it's dimly lit. It's almost like when life leaves a body, the shadows around their eyes, the creases in their skin, the folds, the cracks, the injuries, their causes of death can become more elusive. But that doesn't mean you don't flinch. Flicking that switch, making the lights come on, is always unwholesome to a degree to a character such as you. You are a very experienced pathologist. I mean, you have been examining corpses for more than one lifetime, but you are also a Gaki, one of the hungry, what some people might call a vampire, rather crudely. And under most circumstances, you can go out and you can exist under sunlight, maybe under a particularly heavy shade, wearing some sunglasses, pulling your hood up, unless, of course, you haven't made any positive deals recently. But this bright blue, white light, it is like walking into a room and being hit with a hangover. It always fades within a few seconds, but right now it's just right behind your eyes. Your lab assistant, new, only started this week. You seem to get through them pretty quickly. Looks at you with some concern. You remember his name is Kenneth. Dr. Pages, are you okay? You look like you're suffering a migraine.
I take a moment to adjust my spectacles and rub my forehead. Granted, that doesn't really do anything, and I don't really experience migraines in the normal way anymore, but it's always good to keep up appearances. Keeping up appearances is quite important. That's what my mother always used to tell me, long ago. I'll look at this Kenneth and give him a nice smile. Oh, don't you worry, just old age, which always comes across as a bit of a joke, as I naturally am quite a young-looking man, short blonde hair, grey eyes, very, very thin. But I always joke anyway. Makes people laugh. I like making people laugh.
Yes. I suppose it is bright in here, isn't it?
A little too bright. I really do think we should be getting someone to change these bulbs. They're a little old, aren't they? No? Do you not think so, Kenneth?
Well, I mean, you're the expert, Dr. Pages. I'm just whatever you say. I can put in a request if you want. I mean, one of the first things they taught me was where the paperwork was to be found. It looks like a body's arrived. He trails off mid-conversation. Up until now, you've been assigning Kenneth the most dreary of mortician's jobs, which is to say, cleaning the equipment, making sure everything is sterilised, ensuring all the toe tags are in the right order and on the right feet. It's always quite important to get that bit correct. And this, well, you can see a frisson of excitement across his face. This might be his first cadaver if you actually let him play. In the deliveries area, there's typically a cop present asking you to sign a document to confirm receipt. Maybe the person on the previous shift. Your colleague, Dr. Dumas, signed the body in and then just left for you to deal with the cleanup, shall we say. But Kenneth walks over to the body bag. Looks like a Jane Doe, he says, checking the clipboard.
I walk over, taking a moment to wash my hands, of course, make sure my gloves are well fitted. I look over Kenneth. How is Kenneth looking these days? How is his health? How is he? I always am quite keen to make sure my assistants are healthy.
Well, Kenneth is looking healthier than your previous 3 assistants, who, when they left due to exhaustion, were frankly at death's door, or at least that's how you might describe them. I'm sure they're much better now, but they never stayed in touch for some reason.
To be fair, that's always a good thing. Connections are difficult considering my interesting condition, and it's often easier if most of my assistants or colleagues don't stay around for too long. Don't ask too many questions. Still, I'll go over to Kenneth, look him over. Kenneth, you are sleeping all right, aren't you? You're making sure you get your nutrients every day. That's important, you know, in a young man such as yourself. Very, very important.
Yes, of course. You don't need to worry about me, Doctor. I'm just happy to be here. You know. Do you think, unless I know it's only my 4th day, but do you think I would really appreciate being the person to open this one up?
I take a moment to just analyse Kenneth. This look he has, it's a good look, an excited look. I think later I'd like to try and paint it. Yes, late, but then again I remind myself not to get distracted by artistic endeavours and focus on the actual job. This is your first body, isn't it? Am I making a guess correctly there?
Well, I mean, I've seen plenty of bodies. Obviously, when I was in medical school, but that was always under supervision and as part of a class. And, you know, I've been tagging toes since I got here. I was just hoping that this one, a fresh one, I mean, do you think it is fresh? And his curiosity over what is currently a gift-wrapped body, because it's in the body bag, it's opaque, you can't see the state of the body. There is always a slight thrill. What kind of cadaver are you going to be encountering tonight? Might it be someone who's been in a hit and run? Maybe the victim of a violent crime? Sometimes the most exciting ones are the ones with no discernible sign of death, and then inevitably there's the disappointment of discovering it was just heart failure or something like that. But nevertheless, that moment before you unzip is always... Well, you understand why Kenneth is a bit giddy with anticipation. These young men and women these days, they have to spend a lot longer in medical school than you ever had to before they can finally get to put the knife in someone.
It's all rather more complicated now. I've just about managed to keep up, but sometimes I've needed a little assistance. It was all, well, a little different when I was actually a young man. But no, this Kenneth, I think I like him. I appreciate his enthusiasm. I'll smile and nod and clasp my hands and say, well, you know what? Why don't you do the honours then?
Oh, thank you, Doctor.
Just be aware, this is important. We'd show respect for the dead.
Of course. I would never risk my job by doing anything else.
Of course. And if you are feeling a little, dare I say, queasy, that is fine. It's quite natural the first time. Do let me know. I'll look over the paperwork while you begin the initial observation. And in doing so, I will allow Kenneth to do the initial view while I will quickly skim over the actual paperwork on this Jane Doe. What have I actually been given?
You take the clipboard off the trolley. He therefore pushes it to the slab and goes about the process of shuffling her over. You will hear the unzip shortly thereafter, but in the meantime you do look over the paperwork. It appears that a middle-aged woman, the police officers recorded her likely age somewhere between 40 and 50, Caucasian, was discovered in downtown of Junction City, where you are now. Place of body discovery, a dumpster, so not exactly a noble or heralded death spot. The police officer has recorded the corpse as likely cause of death, and you do hate it when they even try to estimate the cause of death. The cops get it wrong a lot. Was from a gun discharge, and no signs of ID on the body, at least not as discovered by the police.
Unfortunate. A dumpster. How ill-fitting. The dead should be treated a lot better. Still, a Jane Doe is a Jane Doe. I will allow dear Kenneth to begin his work, although of course I will step behind him and just watch very carefully.
Can I ask you to make an enigmas and intellect roll, please, Craig? So I think for you that's going to be 5 dice, and one of those dice is going to be your curse die. Remember, you're looking for 8s, 9s, and 10s. 10s count as 2 hits. For this, it is only a difficulty 1 challenge, and there's no complications, so you just need 1 hit.
Luckily for me, 1 hit is exactly what I get, no more.
You notice, as Kenneth is unzipping the body bag, that there is a sheet of paper stuck to the bottom of his sneaker. It must have fallen off, maybe, from the clipboard when he was shifting the body, and he is now walking it across the morgue.
Kenneth, what's that on your shoe?
He reaches down, drops the scalpel. Oh, no, sorry. He stands up, bumps his head. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It starts to become a comedic farce, or it would if there wasn't a body half exposed with a gaping great chest wound. And maybe it's because of how flustered he's becoming. He is suddenly embarrassed that when his gaze turns to the right and he sees the body and he sees the wound, its lividity, the fact that the blood, at least to his eyes, looked like fresh crimson crystals just dancing around the open ribcage, that his eyes widen, they bug out. You actually see his front teeth bite his lower lip. He staggers back, he lands on his behind. I'm sorry. And predictable. Every new face in this place, they have to throw up at least once, don't they?
They do. I quickly move down first to collect that piece of paper. You never know, it could be something of interest. And then I'm going to go over to poor Kenneth. I'm going to kneel down, extend a hand, and just gently, if he allows it of course, squeeze his shoulder. After all, I do have a bit of an allure about me. I've never been sure if that's because of my heritage, or was I always like that? I was quite shy as a young man, but not so much now. There, Kenneth. Deep breaths. It's okay. It's all right. It's only a little bit of vomit. Not going to harm you, is it? And it's only a cadaver. It's not going to get up and hurt you, I promise.
I'm sorry, and he's wiping his mouth on the back of his sleeve. I'll get cleaned up, I'll get changed. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry.
Perfectly fine, Kenneth, I'm not bothered. Please go and get changed.
He climbs to his feet, and he doesn't run. The floors in this place can be quite slippy. They're always being freshly cleaned, and some idiot sometimes applies wax to them. Gives them a nice shine, though. Shows up any dirt. But he clings on to various surfaces, almost as if he's walking on a ship that's swaying from side to side on rough seas and disappears into the restroom. Again, this is hardly unusual. You have encountered many, many, many a new face that has acted like this when they have come face to face, and he was only inches away from a gaping chest wound. But that leaves you with the piece of paper in your hand. It appears there was a second sheet on the clipboard. Must have come off, as I say. And there isn't a huge amount more information on it, except for one, which is the description. Photos will be following, apparently. The cops tend to send them by email these days to your, to a secure account that the morgue holds. Nothing more than a Dropbox, really. But the description of what they found is what's interesting here, and, well, in its own way, tragic. The body, when it was found, was almost certainly posed, says Officer Meldrew. Posed in a way that implies sexual violence, or contact, or exhibitionism. The body was found unclad. The tragedy of this cadaver just seems to mount and mount. A woman in middle age, found dead in a dumpster in downtown. Nude, posed, without a name, and now under the care of a vampire like you, a gaki that feeds on the dead. Before we carry on with you, Dr. Monty, we're going to go to another character. Z. Well, you've had some adventures recently in Junction City, it's fair to say. Things haven't exactly panned out exactly as you like. You are, as we know, a journalist, investigative at times, a lot of the time just reporting quite fairly on culture matters of the city, but you've always been interested in anything that remotely smells of a conspiracy theory. In part, that's your vocation. It's what you studied, it's what you enjoy. But it's also a part of your accursed nature. You're one of the 8 hands. A were-spider, for want of a better term. And they do so love hoarding their secrets, spinning webs around them to make others find it more difficult to access them. Not all. Some, like leading nice silk trails between secrets, so others of similar mind might find them. After recent events that you endured at the Riverside Theatre, which we don't need to go into right now, you have not been on favourable terms with your family. Your cousin, Rogier, also of the 8 Hands, gave you the news. Nobody in the family is happy, Z. Nobody. After what went down in the theatre, a public feeding event of the son of a sorcerer, and you were there just recording all of it. Now, don't get me wrong. You did what we do. But there are a lot of fingers being pointed right now at who could have stopped all of that from happening. And as one of the only individuals there who had any, let's call it, sense of stability based on accounts, there are hungry and there are sorcerers in this city, and other creatures besides that want to know what the fuck was going on. You don't need to answer me, I'm not your monitor. But you're going to have to do something to get back in the family's good books.
I tolerate this particular observation, this particular perspective, this criticism. I have varying opinions about what happened at that theater. And to your point, we don't need to go into them. I provided a rather exhaustive report to the family. So the fact that they are moving on threads that were not provided to them is very painful. It's very hurtful. It's very discouraging. And it makes me very angry. No, cousin Rohir, you are not my handler. You are not my monitor, but you are the messenger that they've appointed. So apparently I need to reconcile things with the family. What do you all have in mind?
Just as you ask that, a server approaches. The both of you are sat in a Waffle Shack diner that exists in Junction City. It's a chain of things. And the server is approaching with another pot of coffee. Rohir makes the decision to make the swiveling gesture with his finger, as in to say, turn around and walk the other way. We're having an important conversation. The server picks up on this. She gives a small nod, therefore doesn't ask you whether you want your cup refilled, and walks the other way. You know what we like. We like to wind things up in strands of secrecy, if I can afford to be poetic for a moment. But first we need to find them. This is big news, and we prefer to operate under the radar. Find out something that other people haven't, not be at the middle of the story, but be reporting on the story. Believe me, there are people in the family who are very pleased with your report on the theatre. Don't get me wrong, it's the diplomatic side of things that goes beyond our family alone. It's affecting primals all over the city. It's affecting all manner of accursed all over the city, and we do not wish to be at the centre of it. If we can get attention focused elsewhere, if you can find a new strand to pull on so that becomes yesterday's news, well then maybe we have something. As an example, and he pulls a magazine, it's a TV guide in fact, out from the carrier bag that he has on the bench beside him. Rohir is a rather shabby looking individual. He has a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow. His eyes are pretty sunken. His hair is lank and greasy. He always insists on wearing that dark brown mac that, if he wasn't your cousin, you'd probably tell him makes him look like a sex offender. And the carrier bag isn't even some fashionable tote. It's just a plastic striped bag. And so as he yanks the TV guide out from it and slaps it on the table, you can pick up the smell of, well, it's some kind of food in there, littered with spices and not a healthy combination of them. He smiles at you with yellow teeth and stabs at the TV guide with his finger. Netflix. Yes, have a look at what's on Netflix this coming week. There's a special Netflix section in the TV guide these days. You know how modernity is. And there's something that might interest you. I've came across it. I don't watch the TV myself. It rots the brain, if you ask me. But there's something in there that I thought might interest you and pull not just your, but our collective behinds out of any kind of diplomatic fire.
I take a very long, deep breath, because I'm very angry right now. And cousin Rohir doesn't deserve to see me this angry. But it's triggering my hunger. It's triggering my predation. And the audacity of this conversation is making me very angry. That boy at the theater, he's only alive because of me. And so I barely suppress a growl that's sitting directly in the center of my chest cavity. I can feel the interior of my rib bones reverberate. And I am going to very slowly very meticulously reach over for the TV guide and look down to see whatever this new fun thing is that's happening on Netflix.
He doesn't stop smiling at you, and maybe Rohir can pick up on your struggle to suppress the creature that's growling inside you, because you have seen Rohir as he can truly be. He isn't quite as spiderous as you, it's fair to say. He's a little more chitinous, a little more centipedal, you might say. He has a squamish quality that more arachnid-like eight hands such as yourself often find off-putting. Whether there's a hierarchy within the family or not, that's probably debatable from city to city, but certainly Rohir feels like a bottom feeder, and it is doubly indignant to you that he is the person dressing you down right now.
It is. They sent a catfish to me. He doesn't deserve to see me angry. He likely sees it anyways. But I'm going to do what I can to control myself, at least in this moment.
The TV guide is damp. It has curled around, as magazines tend to when they've had liquid poured all over them. And so you have to pry the pages apart to find the Netflix section. It's easy enough to do. These days, streaming services dominate. And it doesn't take you too long to start pouring through the section. Now, what I would ask you to do here, Bridgett, is, even though you will be able to find the information regardless, this is going to be a question of if you find it before he impatiently just taps it and guides you to it. I want you to, much as Craig did earlier, make an enigmas and we'll go for cunning roll, please.
That's a 7. So 5 total successes.
Excellent. 5 hits. And were any of those hits from your curse die?
No, they were not.
Okay, that's good to know. Right, so you find it before Rohir can intervene. So you save a little bit of pride. There's a name you haven't read in a while, and it's not exactly pleasing to see it in a TV guide of all places. Victor Latendresse. Well, it's a name you've heard recently, even if you've not seen it spelled out. That fucking play you were watching was about Victor L., although that was something of an adaptation of his real-life crimes. It would appear that serial killer Victor Latendresse, who was operating in Junction City and other environs, well, he was doing so 30 years ago, and it seems Netflix have just released a special on Latendresse, because you know how Netflix like to do specials on serial killers every now and then. There's that true crime contingent. Let's be honest, Z, you're probably one of them.
Fair.
There is an hour-long special with interviews with members of his family, apparently. But not only that, with some of his surviving victims. Now, why this is important to you isn't just because he was the central character in the abomination of a play that you were forced to endure just the other night. It's also because, from what you understand, Latendresse was an accursed. It was one of these threads you pulled on long ago, and whoever was his relation wasn't rushing forward to claim him. So there's always been some mystery behind who or what Latendresse actually was, but within certain accursed circles, it's believed that the serial killer was indeed one of you. And not only that, there have been stories, and it seems this Netflix special lends at least 20 minutes to this, as to his fate. Because Latendresse was set for the electric chair. He was on his way down to Cold Mountain Penitentiary to ride the lightning, as they say, when his prison transport, well, ended up in a river. No one else was on the road, so no one knows what happened exactly, but Latendresse's body wasn't found. There were others who were, but Latendresse was not. So within some circles he has a D.B. Cooper-like reputation. You know, he's the one that got away. And given the severity of his crimes, there are plenty of people that would hope that he shows up just so he can answer for them. Now, I remember, back when you were young, when you were first dealing with your damnation, and we first grew acquainted with each other...
Don't eat 'em, don't eat 'em, don't eat 'em, don't eat 'em.
That you were such a hound for these real-life murder mystery things, and you came to me all giddy and young and said, "Does anyone know what happened to Victor Latendresse?" Like he's Amelia Earhart or something. As if we've been keeping some colossal conspiracy going in the Eight Hands and concealing this bastard from the world. And obviously I had to break it to you, no, we don't know where Victor Latendresse is, but if that's something you want to look into, Z, then you will go ahead. In a, yes, I admit, it was somewhat patronising way, didn't expect you to find anything.
Oh, if I put his face through the glass, will the glass break first or his face?
This diner is largely empty. Waffle Shack isn't as popular as it used to be ever since they started replacing the dairy and the ice cream. You're not sure what with, but it's no longer dairy.
I am going to continue to keep the upper half of my body as still as possible, even though my toes and my heels are tapping rapidly beneath this dirty booth bench that's stapled, bolted into the floor, and I see the thread, I understand the expectation, and I still want to put his face through the glass.
You might be able to get away with it too, I mean, and this might be your creature just whispering, growling away in your ear right now.
Oh, it's scratching.
Saying, not only is this guy an asshole, but is he really going to want to go back to the rest of your family and say that Z, of all people, got the jump on me? Is he going to want to carry that shame given what you're currently carrying around with you? You could probably do some serious damage to this guy and no one would care. Hell, they might give you a medal. Okay, you know that's not true. But, yeah, it isn't just your conscience you're wrestling with, or your sense of self-preservation. There is that predatory instinct inside you that says, just drill this guy's face with a coffee cup, with a table, with your fist.
Oh, that metal napkin dispenser would be so satisfying.
It would, wouldn't it? If you could aim it just so, it would be a little like popping a cork from a bottle.
Oh, that's the relief I need right now.
Through the bridge of the nose, right into his eyes. You might be able to get a nice clean line cut straight across both of them.
I can literally hear the crunch of his cheekbone right now on that slimy, greasy face. Victor Latendresse, understood. Anything else, dear cousin?
Well, I have my guide back. There is a lovely double-page spread in there, and I intend to examine it.
I push the guide back across the table to him.
Have fun chasing shadows.
Always a pleasure, dear cousin. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm going to pick up my keys. I'm going to pick up my phone. I am going to pull the strap of my side bag over my shoulder, and I am going to push myself out of this tight little booth in this uncomfortable, tight little moment with Cousin Rohir. My eyes linger on that metal napkin dispenser, almost like it was just the one friend in that moment with me. And I'll rise and prepare to leave.
For a moment, it looks like Rohir is going to call something out after you, but perhaps there is a sense of self-preservation of his own. Maybe he does know not to poke the spider right now, because instead he just smiles. Those stained teeth. Well, they don't glimmer in the light, that's for damn sure, but you can't take your eyes off of them. He raises his hand to wave, and then he turns away from you to fold his magazine up and stuff it back in his carrier bag. Now, we will pass on to another character. Silas. Silas Drescher. Now, you have a life very different to our other two protagonists, in the sense that it has long been over. Your life expired, well, quite some decades ago. And yet you do insist on still putting yourself on the path of investigation. You still commit yourself to finding out what people would prefer to keep hidden. Whether it's out of a sense of morbid curiosity, or whether it is because you're trying to atone from some sins of your past, or just because when you're dead, like you are, you have to fill up the time with something. Right now, you are sat in a therapist's office. It isn't your therapist. You are interviewing a doctor, and she is one of you. Her name is Dr. Kiesling. And the only reason you are here is because you were trying to track down one of her patients. The patient's name is Sophie Pace. Why is this of interest to you, Silas Drescher? I'll tell you. It's because just as Z has been shown a TV guide pointing out the crimes of Victor Latendresse and a spanking new documentary that's going to be released about that most glamorous of elusive serial killers, and just as Monty Pages is examining a body that will tie to all of this, well, you have a more personal connection. Because Victor Latendresse was one of your family. He was a Fury. He was one of the dead. And there are various mysteries surrounding the activities of Victor and why he did what he did, and what's more, why he even allowed himself to remain in prison for as long as he was, why he allowed himself to be sent ostensibly to his death again when it wouldn't actually kill him, and what occurred when the prison transport crashed. Now, that was 30 years ago. And the Furies have kept all of this, well, very much close to the chest. It is a family shame. They don't want people knowing what Victor Latendresse got up to. It's difficult enough being a dead family called the Furies. People have a certain expectation of you. If you got tied to someone like Latendresse, well, that would be even worse. And Sophie Pace was one of his surviving victims. You only knew she was back in Junction City because she was being interviewed in that documentary which you haven't seen but you've had recapped. And, well, apparently, Dr. Kiesling here is her therapist. And one of the hungry. An heir. She sits across from you, on the other side of a very expensive mahogany desk. You're fairly certain therapists aren't supposed to separate themselves from their patients like this, but Dr. Kiesling doesn't seem to mind. Please take a seat wherever you like. Mr. Drescher?
Silas is fine. I will grab for the hat that I'm not wearing, because even after all this time being dead, I still imagine myself wearing a hat, because that's what men wore back in the day. But I drape myself over the chair, long, languid form, my body still looking exactly as it did when it died, aquiline nose, widow's peak. He looks like a gentleman detective, but he sounds like a New York sailor. And he goes, listen, I just need to ask you a few questions. Is that going to be a problem? I don't want to get into this whole, thing.
Silas, I am happy to help you, and I am happy to get into bed with your family and friends. You know that our We go way back, don't we? The heirs and the furies. When we want something done, we give you a call. When you need money, you give us a call.
Yeah, well, it's about something more than money now.
Well, let's be clear, Silas. And she smiles. She offers you a cigarette, again, not typical for a therapist, but she has a case of them on her desk like some old-timey business magnate.
He'll grab one, and out of habit, he'll start tapping it as if it were a hand-rolled cigarette.
I don't know you personally. I mean, you sent me your credentials, and that's fine. That's wonderful. And I'm guessing you don't know me personally. I mean, why would you? So, you can ask your questions, and with our family relations in mind, I might answer them. But mostly I have a curiosity here. What brought you to me?
He leans forward and reaches up to push back the hat that's not there. And he says, I understand that it is perhaps a breach of confidentiality to ask about one of your patients. But you and I both know that there's a lot more going on in this world than just whatever the mortals might worry about your medical credentials. I mean, look at this place. Clearly you ain't that worried about your medical credentials.
I fell on my feet.
Mm-hmm. One of your patients is a woman named Sophie Pace.
I see.
I had an interest in finding her. Nothing nefarious, just want to ask her some questions.
Nothing nefarious, I see. Would it be a frightful breach of etiquette to ask, is that the same body you've been wearing for, 80 years?
Why, you want one?
No. I know plenty of dead, and some of them jump between houses, shall we say, like a yuppie trying to find the sports car that fits. And it's just maybe the way you dress, the way you do your hair. Something about you smells old.
Look, it works. It gets the job done, you know what I'm saying? It's just, I haven't felt a need to upgrade right now. I don't have to get the next new shiny cell phone. I don't have to get the next new shiny car. The body works, gets me where I need to go. It's fine.
No, fine. I mean, I'm not a provider, don't get me wrong. I'm not... That's not my business. I know one of the Gaki works out of the city morgue. I'm sure if you do ever need a new run-around model, you could probably pick one up there. But Sophie Pace,
Yeah.
to the point. Patient of mine, yes. Details forthcoming. Probably not, Silas. I mean, we may not be quite like them, but I do have some professional standards.
One of my edges is quick read, which allows me to get a glance at someone I've just met, and it sounds like I've never met this character before, and ask one question and get an honest answer from her.
Okay.
So Silas is going to look her up and down, look at how she holds her hands, how she sets her face, how she sits in her chair. And the question I have is, what will it take to get her to say yes?
It will take the promise of a favour. That's what these heirs like to deal in. They like having people in debt to them. I mean, that's how the heirs became as powerful as they are. They are known as the iron-fisted hungry to some. And, yeah, if you are willing to get in debt to this therapist, this Dr. Kiesling, well, she's probably going to allow you to stumble upon an open filing cabinet or go out for a walk while a piece of paper is left on the desk, or she might just flap her gums and start telling you everything you need to know. But you very much doubt that she is all that concerned about patient confidentiality. She's a heart-eater. She is the kind of vampire that when she is pushed to it, she isn't going to be draining people of their blood. She's not going to be leaving them feeling emotionally vacant. She is going to be devouring the heart from inside them. And so, yeah, you examine her posture. She has her chin perched on her steepled fingers, leaning forward, looking expectant, almost juvenile in a way. She knows what the game. She knows how it's played. She's just waiting for you to offer a service.
Silas leans back in his chair, puts the cigarette in his mouth, pats his pockets, eventually finds a lighter.
No, don't use that in here, please. Matches. We do things classically.
Puts the lighter back. Reaches over to the bowl of matches on her desk.
I do love the smell of match smoke.
Strike on the desk. Take it in. Feel the smoke going into my lungs, pushing them to fill. And just feeling for a moment that little knot of fury in my chest that's been there as long as I've been around. Ever since I've died, it's never quite gone away. It's almost comforting feeling that fury inside of me and just thinking how someday I'll put her on the list, but not right now. Exhale the smoke. Alright, look. Neither you or I are getting any younger.
Is this a marriage proposal?
God, no. I like my heart where it is, babe. But I'm just saying, let's just cut through the stuff. This is the part where I ask you what you want, and you tell me I need a favor, and I say, well, I'll put myself in debt to you in exchange for the information, and then you give me the information. Can we just jump to the information part and take the I owe you a favor as read?
Well, Silas, I love a man who cuts straight to the chase. Actually, that's not true. I like the dancing around part. It's the most fun bit. But, fine. You owe me. I mean, I would write it down if only I had a pen, but let's pretend we will both imagine one in my hand right now, and a contract is signed, yes?
Yeah.
A deal's a deal. Sophie Pace, one of my patients, only recently, mind you, she used to live here in Junction City when she was a younger woman. Left after a crime was committed, with her at the centre of it. Fled, moved away to Castleton or Castletown. No, it was near there. Derry. But came back in the last year because they were making a documentary nearby. They asked her to be in it. She decided she would stick around. But she needed therapy. Good grief, did she need therapy. I mean, she's been seeing a therapist all her life, this poor woman, and I can only say I imagine they haven't been very good, because she is still struggling, the poor lamb. As fate would have it, she stumbled up to my door. I mean, it's funny how these things work, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And wouldn't you know, all of this preamble aside, the reason she's so traumatized, the reason this woman's so screwed up, which is to say, the reason she has this debilitating condition, she says, wearing a professional mask for a moment before. The reason she is such a fuck-up is because... Do you remember Victor Latendresse?
Yeah, I heard of him.
The Ted Bundy of Iowa?
Mm-hmm. Name sounds familiar.
Well, she was one of his victims. surviving victims, of which there are very few. So with that in mind, I can understand why she did a runner after all that happened, moved all the way over to the East Coast, and subsequently came back for this documentary. They must have been paying her very well. I never got that figure out of her, which is a shame, because I would have upped my rates if it turned out to be quite generous. Anyway, all that said, she was supposed to come in for an appointment today, didn't, which isn't uncommon. That happens a lot. And, well, she leans forward. I wonder, I recommended a certain course of therapy, a treatment, if you will. It's a bit like confronting your fears. I mean, you know those poltergeists, don't you? They're all about confronting fears.
Yeah, sure, we're all like, whatever.
Yeah, well, she was originally attacked by La Tendresse in an alley in Junction City in, positively Bruce Wayne style.
Mm-hmm.
In downtown, and I said to her, have you been back to this alley? And she said, no. The people at Netflix wanted me to go back to the alley so they could film me stood right there where Victor threatened to kill me. And I said, well, that is what you need to do, Sophie. You will never overcome your fear unless you go back to where you were threatened, and you take a deep breath and walk from one end of the alley to the other to prove to yourself that La Tendresse is no longer there. Your attacker is no longer looming over you. And I even said go during the daylight hours, when you feel most safe. Go with a friend if you need to. And you know what she said to me? She looked at me with a steely gaze, and she said, I'll go alone. I can do it. I was so proud of her. We made a breakthrough, Silas. A real breakthrough. It's very rare that you find, well, people who have had such a troubled past, who are prepared to take such a great step toward recovery. But keep that between us.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't dream to impugn your highly ethical position here.
Well, I have openings should you need someone's shoulder to cry on.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. So, do you have that favor already in hand, or do you want to come back later and call me when you know what you want?
Oh, I've got certain irons in the fire, Silas. Let me decide on which one is ideal for you, and then I'll give you a call.
Yeah.
I like to leave people guessing for a while, It allows you to build up a little anticipation.
Silas leans back over the desk to get up, stubs his cigarettes near the ashtray, intentionally misses.
Huh.
Well, goes to reach for the hat that he is wearing. I'll see you then. Turns, walks to the door. Right before he gets to the door, he stops and turns around and says, oh, and, you're a bad therapist. And he leaves.
With the slam of the door, Dr. Kiesling is left in silence. Unbeknownst to Silas, she smiles after him and then picks up her phone. Yes, Dr. Kiesling here. Yes. No, I was just here with Silas Drescher, Yes, the investigator. Looking into Sophie Pace. Yeah, don't worry, he owes me now. Yeah, we'll make it worth our while. We don't have anything to fear from him.
You have listened to an episode of Red Moon Roleplaying, where we play the scenario Suffer My Sins for Curseborne, which is published by Onyx Path Publishing. Curseborne is on Kickstarter right now, and you can find a link in the show notes. Story guide was Matthew Dawkins, and we were also joined by Bridgett, Jeffries, and Eddy Webb. The music was created by Atrium Carceri and was used with permission from their label, Cryochamber. Please check out cryochamber.bandcamp.com or their YouTube channel for more of their lovely dark ambient. We would love to give massive thanks to our champions of the Red Moon, Martin Heuschober, Simon Cooper, David, Julia, Camilla, Bob Lange, Cameron, Graham Barey, Doug Thomson, Lily, Mike Parker, and Maciej for their generous support. And we would of course also like to thank all of our other patrons. Without your support, the show would not be possible. If you want to support our work, please check us out on Patreon. You can get access to our Call of Cthulhu bonus campaign, Shadows of Yog-Sothoth, with Matthew as our keeper, as well as bonus campaigns for Cult of Divinity Lost and Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. On top of that, we also offer early and raw access to all of our recordings, and you can also hear your name read on the show as a champion of the Red Moon. Finally, you could also play some Cult with us. Most importantly, that support is what keeps the show going, so do check us out there. Thank you again for listening, and remember that the world is cursed.